very common for GIS data to be shared. So this is something we should consider as we use it. So GIS data can exist in one place, but it can be used by multiple users, like in this example here, where 3 different people are using the same counties data to make 3 different maps here. Sometimes we have access rights associated with who can read or write this data in order to better protect it. And if you're sharing with a group, it's a really good idea to have some protocols or procedures in place so that you're not simultaneously editing the data. The path name is important, and this shows an example here. One thing we consider is this idea of an absolute path name. So an absolute path name would tell you where the county's data is stored here. And so in this example here, it's in C, GIS data, MGIS data, Oregon DAT, and then it's called counties. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. But another thing that you can consider is if you're working in MGIS data, you can store a relative path name. That means in MGIS data, go into that folder there that you're in, and then go under Oregon, and then go under Oregon DAT, and that's where you'll find counties. So one kind of strategy is to store your data in the same place where you have your file that you're using for making the map. And that's something we'll talk more about. But you can see this is the difference between the absolute path that begins with the drive letter that you're working on, and the relative path that begins with this backslash, which says in this folder that I'm in, this is where the data is. And in Pro, it's nice because these paths are assigned automatically. So because it assigns paths automatically, you have the relative path, you have the absolute path, and then also if you're using a UNC path on the internet, it also stores that. In general, this strategy works pretty well. But when you're copying data, you want to make sure to copy the entire project folder, the project folder that contains both the data and this .aprx file. That's the one that's going to save all of the things that you do with that data in order to make a map, where if you're doing a layout where you're putting the scale bar and the north arrow and all those other things, and what colors you use to represent, to symbolize your data, it's all going to be in this APRX file. So it's important to preserve these path names, but sometimes they do have issues associated with them. For example, if you sent this to someone and they accidentally deleted the data in that folder, this is what would show up when they try to map that. It knows there's supposed to be a layer there called cities that it's trying to find, but it can't find it. So it puts a red exclamation point here. And if that cities existed in some other folder, once again, someone could double click on that and they could find it, but they would have to know the path in order to find out where that was being located. So you can correct this if you see this, but you have to have that data available somewhere in order to do that. Once again, when you're making these folder names, never put a space in the folder name. It can cause problems down the line. And as you're working on a project, you can't rename the APRX file that you're working on, or that can also cause problems. You can save as to create a new copy, but that's not going to create a copy of the entire project. It's only going to create a copy of the file that tells what color things are going to be, what your north arrow and all that looks like, but it's not going to have the data right in that APRX file. It can have it in the same folder, but not in that. It's not going to be in that file. One thing to consider when you're doing all this is your environmental settings. Your environmental settings affect the operations of tools. It's basically saying where you want your output location to be, if the output is going to be in a specified coordinate system, all of that sort of thing. And you can set that up so that you're always putting things in there. One way to do that is just go to the Environments button on your analysis ribbon, and this will affect all the tools that you'll use. You don't have to set it for every particular tool. You can just set it once, and then it will be done for all of the sorts of different analysis tools that you use. So as a coordinate system reminder, remember when you're compiling your data, it's best if everything is in the same coordinate system, especially if you plan to do any sort of analysis with that data. Remember, if you convert to that coordinate system, if you project things into nat 83 meters, sometimes it asks you about the datum, and the standard datum is usually a fine one to select. So like this nat 83 meters is typically the one that's used. And if you want to check to make sure all your layers are in the same map projection, the map projection window is a good place to check, because that's going to list for all of your layers what map projection everything is in. So most things in this map are in the state plane New Jersey map projection, all of these, except for the topography, the topographic information, which is in a different Web Mercator projection. So it's easy to see if something is not in the desired projection that you want just by looking in this map properties window.